Happy birthday, GDPR. How's it going so far? I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is Myke Lyons, Chief Information Security Officer at Calibra. Welcome, Myke.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What does Calibra do, and how have you been involved in GDPR?
So Collibra is a data governance and data catalog organization. And I myself am the Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, I guess is the abbreviated way to say what I do. But GDPR, for anyone in my role, is critical for us to function, be able to respond with the regulations. So we have any potential European private information or personal information. If something happens to that information, we have a duty to respond. So that's a critical part of any CISO's job.
We're coming up on the first anniversary of the implementation of the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or as we've been referring to it, GDPR. Looking back, how would you assess the first year?
I think a lot has gone on. There was a lot of fear across the industry about being able to respond to the incidents. As I was saying, there's a 72-hour requirement anytime there's an issue related to personal information regarding an EU citizen. So there's a lot of fear around that. There's also a lot of fear of just having a privacy-related regulation come into play where there was some real teeth behind it. There had been a lot of attempts to sort of execute privacy regulation previously, but the fines were just not there and they generally weren't being enforced. So I think, a year on, it's interesting to see how organizations stepped up in some cases, and other ones missed the opportunity and still have some worlds to go. I also think it's been sort of seen worldwide as a major step forward towards individuals' privacy. So much so that we've seen additional regulations spread up here in the US and potentially in other countries pretty soon.
What were the biggest challenges for the industry as a whole?
I think organizing themselves and realizing that responding was going to require not just a group of security analysts or security individuals. It's going to require a larger body of an organization. Security incidents traditionally could just be handled behind closed doors. What I found is there's the opportunity to bring in your legal team, your finance team, as this could potentially impact your P&L, your PR team, because you may need to report to the street that something like this had occurred. There was a social media network that most of us are familiar with that had a pretty major event, and it had a pretty negative impact on the stock price. And these are things that are going to continue to play part, especially as the fines can increase.
Did the regulators learn anything that prompted any tweaks to the rules?
Interesting. I think the tweaks to the rules, maybe not, but I do think that one of the things that they've been challenged with is in the enforcement side of it. And so for the enforcement arm to actually work, it has to be financed. And so that's going to play a big part in the way that these fines are actually levied and measured.
Most importantly, does the average consumer have tangible evidence that their data and privacy is better protected now compared to how it was maybe a year ago?
I think it's maybe there's some reassurance going on with the fact that some of these regulators are thinking about these things in the right way. Specifically with CCPA in California, there's a lot of confidence that has to be gained with regards to this. There's been some interesting announcements from a large tech vendors around privacy becoming more of a right for individuals, and probably 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, maybe just before GDPR was being announced, there was sort of zero expectation of privacy on the internet. And now that perception is changing. Whether or not we have an expectation, I think that's still a growing opportunity. But we're working towards that, and I think we need to, because the internet is not something I just go to anymore. It's becoming part of my life and part of everyone's daily life.
You mentioned the big social media network that had a misstep already this year, and it seems like they have really had many missteps in the past, and just they don't really seem to enforce privacy the way that they say that they want to. What are some other missteps that have happened that were good learning lessons for businesses who maybe even tried to comply?
So I think, data is becoming so large for organizations, and understanding where that data is and how that data is leveraged is there's an opportunity in the market, and there's opportunity with anyone who's collecting data to do a better job and keeping an eye on these things. Right? There's people are moving more digital. They are becoming There's this transformation going on across the board, and therefore there's an opportunity to be able to discover this information and find out where this data resides and what this data is and make sense of it. And so with regards to that, I think there's a lot of the advent of things like artificial intelligence and machine learning specifically around data discovery, and better comprehension of those data. And I think that's something that's going to start to enable businesses to progress there. And this is a great opportunity. Frankly, one of the reasons that I work where I am.
In your opinion, what will the GDPR conversation include at this time next year?
That's interesting. I do believe that the conversation is going to be sharper teeth, and who's next, and where do we go next? Not who's next and who's going to be put up in the stocks, but who's next in terms of following California with CCPA, which country goes next? And it seems like Australia is most likely going to be the next one. I hope it doesn't go into a race where these regulators are just trying to one up each other with regards to fines. But I do think that generally there should be some expectation of privacy, and also leading towards better understanding of how data science is working.
Myke Lyons, Chief Information Security Officer at Collibra. If somebody wants to connect with you, maybe they have some questions about GDPR, how can they do that?
So I'm on Twitter as Myke Sec, Mykesec, and obviously there's a lot of information out on Calibra's website. That's calibra.com.
Sounds good. And you can find more of my interviews right here or at tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.